And I will just do my quick introduction. So, hello everyone. Welcome to our UU Virtual Roundtable. My name is Sarah Reyes, and I will be today's moderator. So before we begin, I just want to take just a quick moment to remind everyone that we will be recording this session and uploading it onto the UUCLC YouTube page. So if you ever just want to go back and rewatch these sessions, or share it with a friend, this is a really good opportunity for you to visit it and subscribe to the channel, since we upload these weekly. Secondly, we're going to have a PowerPoint. I spoke to Tom earlier, and he said that it's okay if you all ask questions as we go along. But I also want to say that we'll also have a Q&A section. So this section's kind of up to you if you want to ask during the presentation or during the Q&A session. Besides that, I don't have any more announcements. So please enjoy today's roundtable session.
All right, thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Paul, for asking me to do a roundtable on my 2 backpacking trips in the Pecos Wilderness this summer. One by myself and one with my son, Andrew. And Andrew's on. He's gonna say some things. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Andrew. Tell everybody what you're doing up there in Albuquerque.
Hi, I'm Tom's son, Andrew. I live in Albuquerque. I've been here since 2011. Really like it. I work for the Reels channel, which is a nationally broadcast television network. They focus a lot on celebrity type of drama, documentary type programming. So that's what I do. I'm in the marketing department, so I make television commercials basically to promote the network. So whenever you're watching TV and you see a spot that's promoting the network you're watching, it's something along those lines. That's what I create.
And what's your degree in here at MSU, Andrew?
I got my degree in creative media with a focus on animation. So
wow,
you can go film or animation with the creative media program, and I went animation, and not really exactly doing what I thought I'd be doing with that degree, but I'm doing creative things, so that's what counts.
who does?
And
I want to say real quick that I agree with that, since I also have a degree in animation from
Oh, did
NMSU.
you?
Yeah, I just graduated last May.
Oh, congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. We got 2 creative media animation grads here. That's wonderful.
That's good.
So let me move forward. And I thought I'd start by telling you what wilderness is. So this is an actual congressional designation for certain public lands, and we'll read this together. Congressionally designated federal land defined by the Wilderness Act of 1964. And here's a quote from the act: an area where the earth and its community of life are untrammeled by man, where man himself is a visitor who does not remain. So that is the definition of a wilderness. And a wilderness area is managed to allow natural, biological, and physical processes to proceed unhindered by human interference. And because of the designation, wilderness is actually more protected, more rugged than some of the backcountry national parks that I have hiked in, where you do have rangers in the backcountry. And we're restricted just to foot and horseback on rugged trails. About half of the Oregon Mountain Desert Peaks National Monument has been designated wilderness to get additional protection from motorized vehicles and some other things. And that's actually one good thing that happened in the out of doors during the Trump administration, was the wilderness designation. Okay, I'll go forward. And so the Pecos Wilderness is one of the old ones. It was designated wilderness in 1964, the year that the Wilderness Act was passed by Congress, joining the National Wilderness Preservation System. And you might have heard that the oldest one by designation, the first one to be designated, was the Gila Wilderness. So New Mexico had a couple of golden originals in 1964 in terms of the wilderness designations. I should also mention here too, and it's a topic for maybe a future roundtable, and something that I think is going to happen with Deb Haaland being our Secretary of the Interior, and Tom Vilsack, our Secretary of Agriculture. I think they'll work together very well. And Forest Service land is under Department of Agriculture, so that's under Vilsack. And BLM, National Parks, National Monuments are under the Secretary of the Interior, Department of the Interior. And there's more and more of a movement to get Indigenous people involved in our federal public lands. And so I have a feeling that original definition, if we go back, it's a possibility that, and I see this happening, it happened up here in Bears Ears National Monument in Utah, where they actually got an advisory committee of Native American tribes to, they developed the plan and sent it to President Obama, who designated the wilderness with Congress. And then it was rolled back by President Trump to about 15% of its original size. I have a feeling that's one of the acts that's going to be turned back. But one of the nice things about that Bears Ears National Monument was that it had the Native American Advisory Council. This is something they wanted, 5 tribes wanting to do some of their indigenous practices and celebrations on the public land, as well as do some guiding, and then also open it up as a protected area to other people. So I think we may see this modified a little bit in this particular administration. This is an interesting movement in federal public land management, actually, that to get the Native people more involved in managing these lands.
Good.
All right. They added in 1980 55,000 acres to the Pecos Wilderness to bring it to its size today. It's about 365 square miles. So it's about 20 miles by 20 miles if it was a square. But you'll see it's not. And it's in both the Carson and Santa Fe National Forests in northern New Mexico. So there it is. It's nestled up there just to the northeast of Santa Fe. When you're on the Interstate 25, and you go over Glorieta Pass and head for Las Vegas, and you're looking up into the left into the mountains, you're looking up into the Pecos Wilderness. One thing that I learned in researching hiking in the wilderness, it's a good thing to get on the Forest Service sites and take a look at any wilderness closures and restrictions. So I have this on here, and I'm going to actually quit sharing the screen and go to the website for the Santa Fe National Forest just to show you how this works. But it's good to do this before going on a trip, to make sure that the area that one is going into isn't closed because of perhaps a fire is burning or has burned in there, and to know the other laws that are governing the area at the time, like for campfires. So let me stop sharing here, and I'll bring up the website. Oops, I'm not seeing it here. Hold on a sec, folks. Let's see if this is it. No, that's my Zoom one. Oh no, here it is. Okay. Everybody seeing that?
Yeah.
So that's the homepage for the Santa Fe National Forest. It's National Forest, so it is managed by the Forest Service, and that's under the Department of Agriculture, where Paul O'Connell used to work.
I worked for the Forest Service for 14 years as a researcher, economics.
And if you're looking at looking for the restrictions, you go to alerts and notices up on the left and click on those. And it will bring up another page. Now, sometimes the list of closures and restrictions is right there, but this one has one more link in the middle, current closures and restrictions. And it brings up the list, and it shows the date that the policy was issued in the left-hand column, and the effective date, the end date of the policy. And some of these go on a long time. You're seeing years like 2031, 2030. So some of these laws last a long time. And yeah, you can go through here and look at these and see what is going on. And so here's one on road closure and an area closure. I think this one is because of a forest fire up by the Santa Fe ski area. Let's see. Show you this one here, and it shows the restricted area, but I just go to the map, and you have to look at this pretty carefully, and it shows what area is closed, and you can kind of check and see if it's the area that one is hoping to go to. This occupancy and use closure one applies to the whole Santa Fe National Forest, not just to one area. And I'll show it real quick, but I'll go right away. I'll show the map, and it's really for the whole Pecos Wilderness here. But this one defines things like public nudity, that you can't, what actually is public nudity, and it's not allowed in the Pecos Wilderness. And it's actually very anatomically correct, and it's a wild law there. So you could look at that, and that law would be in the Carson too, I think. Just to let people know what's legal and what's not legal when you get up into the wilderness. There's one on marijuana. The occupancy and use closure one that I mentioned too also has no underage drinking, and a couple of other things in there. So I wanted to show that to you.
Wow.
I'll do a stop share here, and let's bring the slides back up.
Huh.
Good to check those things just to be sure. There were no fees for where Andrew and I went. It was free once we got to the trailhead just to go on in. There wasn't even any place to sign a book that we were there. We just took off. And that's part of being in a wilderness. You can be in there quite anonymously, hopefully paying attention to the laws that are in place at the time. When Andrew and I went in, no campfires were allowed in the Pecos at all. And there were a couple fires burning, one in the east and one up by the Santa Fe ski area. Okay.
So who enforces these laws?
Well, yeah, there's no rangers. So it's really on the honor system for people to know and not have a fire. If they spotted a fire or smoke, they might come in, and boy, you would be in trouble.
Yeah, no, they
yeah,
have people overlooking it, but now in wilderness, not a whole lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can see that. No, I was more thinking about nude cross-country skiing.
Yeah,
I don't think they're going to do bad much about that.
Okay, all right.
yeah.
If you want to be that stupid, do it.
I guess you could be
What
reported.
are you talking about, stupid? It's a lot of fun. You ought to try it.
It's on snow. Give me a break.
Another special designation up there is the Pecos River at its headwaters has a wild and scenic river designation. And it was designated in 1990. So it has some particular protections that even go beyond wilderness. Here's the criteria for designation as a wild and scenic river. It has to be free flowing and one or more features of outstanding remarkable value. And in the case of the Upper Pecos, it's a couple of waterfalls. And it has to first be designated by the state. Even if they don't have a wild and scenic river program, they can designate that land, and then it can be designated federally. It's administered by the state, so this gets some oversight by the state as well as the feds. And it has to have protective mechanisms and regulations in place. And this picture down below, which is up on the Skyline Trail, which we're going to get on just a bit, off to the left there, the lower left, that is the beginning of the Pecos River. So I was right at the divide between the Santa Barbara and Pecos River systems. And then some goals. Wanted to stay in state so I didn't have to quarantine after getting out, and still get in a couple of trips and get up into the Pecos for the first time. And I'm kind of kicking myself that it took 31 years in the state to go hike in the Pecos Wilderness.
Whoa.
But I finally got up there, and it won't be our last time up there. And to go on a trip with Andrew and his new puppy who you're going to meet, Goose.
Oh,
And then, yeah, spiritual, mental, and physical health. Okay, so the first trip was on the Santa Barbara drainage, which has 3 forks. And I went up the West Fork and I came around and down the East Fork. So it's going to be a big loop. I'm going to be out for 5 days, 4 nights. Really a beautiful trip. And there's some good water in the Santa Barbara, even though they hadn't had a lot of rain during the summer. It still had decent water in it. So I had my fishing gear with me, and I didn't get to fish down below here until at the end of the trip. I did try fishing in the upper part. It was beautiful water. And this is a really nice place for people to go and camp. It's a great campsite at the beginning of the Santa Barbara trail system and the 3 forks, and really great day hiking, especially up the West Fork. It's this beautiful, big, wide open, long, flat meadow. It's just a tremendous walk in nature if you just want to do a wonderful day hike that is an easy one, but very pretty. Still walking through the big long meadow, and that's Chimayoso's Peak, probably named after Chimayo. I asked my secretary, Carmen, who is bilingual, I said, Chimayo, is that just a place name, or is that a Spanish name? I couldn't find it in my dictionary, and she said, no, it's just a place name.
yeah.
So this is named after the town of Chimayo, probably Chimayoso's Peak. And you can see the Rockies are very weathered mountains compared to the Sierras in California and the Cascade Mountains, which are still growing. These were much bigger mountains once. Now looking back, you can just see how long this meadow is. It's just beautiful walking out in the open like this with the yarrow and white fir, and remembering the flower in the lower right-hand corner of the second picture. I'm drawing a blank on that, but it'll probably come to me. Here's where I tried to do some fishing. There were some little pockets that had some depth to them. I thought I'd catch a fish or two in here. You can see as you get up and the forks of the river split off into their source drainages. The West Fork gets smaller and smaller. It's not very large by the time I got up to start up over the pass, but still good, clean water to pump for camping, and didn't catch any fish, but it was beautiful being out there in the meadow. While I was exploring fishing and just exploring the area, I found this mystery dam. This is an interesting, the algae makes this picture pop, doesn't it? It really pops. And, I'd open the floor if anybody thinks what this is for. Now, remember, the stream is just to the right here. It's actually real boggy off to the right. Some of that seepage from this pond and the stream running through there too. So what do you think? What do you think this is for? What made it? What do
Looks
you
like
think?
a beaver dam.
It does look like a beaver dam, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Now, if you look right in the center, do you see that U-shaped piece of steel?
Yeah.
No. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Right in
yeah.
the middle here. You see?
Oh, okay.
And then there was some cabling outside of it. So it's, and then I looked at the cuts, and there were some chainsaw cuts or some saw cuts. So if you take the beaver out, why do you think somebody built this? This is the mystery. This is a little long for a beaver dam too. They would probably,
Yeah, that's bigger than, yeah.
it's really a long one. So it's man-made. There's cabling and there's some metal there. And there are grazing leases and cattle grazing up here.
Oh,
Yeah, well,
Like-
that's what I was gonna say. It would have been a watering hole for livestock, maybe?
It could be if they're trying to get them out of the stream bed, perhaps. Another thing I thought is it could be trapping some water for, I didn't go check to see if there was sort of a canal or a sluice where they were doing some mining up here, some
Could be.
sluicing, looking for gold.
So
Yeah,
this
really
this area wouldn't be wilderness then.
Yeah, this is wilderness, but this,
Oh,
this
yeah, but that's, there's a lot, in wilderness, there's a lot of stuff that went on there before.
right, that's true. And it's good to understand that even though it's wilderness, this is multiple use. They still have the grazing leases up here.
Right.
So just like Oregon Mountain Desert Peaks, we got that wilderness, but they're multi-use. They have grazing, they have cattle grazing on the wilderness part.
Yeah.
So this is a kind of a mystery. I'm not sure. I'd love to get the history of this dam. So that's the end of my first day of hiking, and I'm getting up in the morning and going up over the pass to Truchas Lake. Nice little waterfall here. It's kind of pretty. I should have put in the animated one. I did the video of this. It's very pleasant. Trail getting a little more rugged.
Yep.
Getting up above 10,000. The pass is at 12,000 feet. There's my pack again. I always carry the American flag and the New Mexico flag I've added on recent trips. I get more compliments on having an American flag and a New Mexico flag. Andrew takes a flag too now. When I'm not in the state, people comment on the New Mexico flag. People are interested in New Mexico, and we'll stop on the trail. We'll talk a little bit. It's a bit of a conversation opener. But being a good American on our wonderful public lands, I love to carry the flags. This is one of the Truchas peaks. I think this is the North Peak. We're still going up the pass here. You can see how weathered the rock is. It's really down to kind of gravel and sand. At one time, this was all talus rock probably, but it's just been weathered to where it's it's pretty small chunks. You can see the trail way down in the middle. I kind of came up on the switchback there, slogging up there. And I did a selfie here at the top. That's Chimayoso's peak now. I'm really close to the top of it now. And I had about 800 feet more to go to get to the top of it. I'm kind of wishing I did, but I decided to go. The wind was blowing. You see, I have my raincoat on. It was really cold and windy at that elevation and not very pleasant with the sun behind the clouds. So I took the selfie and then headed down to Truchas Lake.
how cold was it?
You know, with the wind chill there, I bet it was close to freezing.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, even
What time of the year was it, Tom?
yeah, this is in the summer, in July,
Oh, wow.
earlier in July. But yeah, it's at a high elevation.
Yeah,
And then you get that wind blowing up there.
You've got some snow, don't you, in a couple of these pictures?
Yeah, there's a little bit of snow left up there still. And these are south-facing slopes. So you would think that snow would be gone facing the south toward the sun, but there's still some there. So yeah, the water's cold and it's pretty cold up there. And you can see the elevations. Church's Peak is the second highest mountain in New Mexico after Wheeler Peak. And I think all three of these, the three Church's Peaks, are like 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, above 13,000, that's getting pretty high.
Getting up there, yeah. Getting up into respectable Rocky Mountain territory.
Oh yeah, that Longs Peak in Colorado is 14,280 because I
Right.
climbed it once.
Yeah, that's great. It looks like a golf course. I just struck by this. It's like a long dog leg left or a couple of holes. A par 3 and then a dog leg left, a par 4. It's amazing, some of these at the high elevations, how open it looks. And you'll see this on another day of the trip too.
It's getting above the tree line.
Yeah, getting up there.
And how far you can hit a golf ball at high elevation.
A long
Have you
way.
tried that? Oh,
I didn't bring my clubs.
well, use one of your sticks, man.
Then over there off to the left are East Pecos Baldy and Pecos Baldy, and there's their elevations. I put those in there to get your eye over in that direction because that's where Andrew and I are going to be on the second trip. We're going to be on the other side of that ridge down in the Rio Medio, the middle river, on the other side of Church's Peak. And then the Church's Lakes, there's a lower and an upper one, and that's Church's Peak again, right at the base of that. A pretty picture. This outcropping of rock, I took my little camping chair over there and sat and read. That was a nice place to sit.
You see much wildlife, Tom?
We'll see the wildlife on day 4.
Okay.
Day 4 was the wildlife day. What I saw here in Church's Lake, I thought they were trout at the beginning because Church's means trout. So I was thinking, oh gosh, Trout Lake. I had my gear. I said, I'm going to catch dinner, have my fishing license. But I didn't see a single fish rise. What I saw were these big salamanders in the lake, lots of them. I thought they were fish, but then I noticed they had feet. I rolled out the fish. And when I cast out there, they would go over and look at the fly, but they weren't interested in the fly. And that's good because I didn't want to catch a salamander.
You can't eat those?
Well, we could have, but I wasn't that
Aren't that desperate?
desperate or primitive, yes. And this pretty upper lake, look, it's pretty little
that's pretty.
alpine lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the upper one. I should let you look at that a little longer. It's such a pretty one. This had salamanders in it too. I was hoping that they would both have truchas or trout, but no luck. I think partially because you get up high here and the streams don't run out of these all year. And so the fish don't get up there some years. So there might have been trout there at one time, but it's hard to sustain a population. There's that lower lake getting toward evening now and my camp on the second night. And I was joined on that night by a group of 4 recent high school graduates. Well, 3 of them were graduating, going to college, and 1 was being held back for bad grades. And they were fun. They camped by me and they had a lot of questions. And we got hammered by a hail and rainstorm that afternoon. And they had that big piece of clear plastic and that tarp, and they had the tent, and different people had different things, and all of it failed during the hailstorm. And they got really wet. So they pulled their resources and they built that structure where they would all 4 cram into that tent with the visqueen plastic over it and the tarp over that. I hope they could breathe. They were funny. Yeah.
Are there designated camping spots? Is that?
There isn't in the, there are certain places you cannot camp, like on the Pecos, the wild and scenic parts of the river, and there's actually a bigger area of the Pecos you can't camp. But you're supposed to stay a certain amount of distance from any stream or lake.
Mhm.
I think that is 200 feet. I'm not, other than that, it's just finding a flat place that will give you some protection from the wind and the sun, as well as some flat rocks where you can do your cooking. They were maybe 100 feet from me, and there was another person camping here too, because there wasn't that much flat ground around this lake. So on day 3, I got up and I just did day hiking, exploring, and ran into quite a few Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, all ewes and lambs. That's kind of fun, and they were losing their winter coats still. And they were very tame. They did not care about me getting close to take pictures. They knew they were in a wilderness and that they were protected. Yeah, a lot of Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, but no rams here. We're going to meet the rams later.
Oh.
The rams are off, doing their thing, and they're leaving the ewes to take care of the lambs, and they're not taking any responsibility at all raising those lambs. There's another trail up to a pass to overlook the drainage into the Rio Quemado. There's a town of Quemado up in northern New Mexico too. Headwaters are coming out of the Pecos Wilderness. So I went up there to get a good view, look around, just day hiking, and saw the Middle Truchas Peak. There's the middle one to complete the trio there. Then I came down off of that pass and decided to go east a ways and explore a little more, getting away from Truchas Peak and just having a nice day hike and taking a break after a couple of hard days of hiking. Some more of those Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep. Okay, day 4 was my biggest hiking day, and got up early, got away before the teenagers woke up. And you can see all those dead trees. Sometimes you see them with certain light, you see them better than you do with other light. But I wanted to point out that in the Rockies, you see this a lot, in the Wimanooch Wilderness and up in Rocky Mountain National Park. And this is an effect of climate change. When you get a lot of drought in the high country, the trees there's already a lot of trees from our fire suppression practices that we had in the Forest Service and the Park Service for many years. So there's a lot of trees, and they are competing for scarce resources, for water, sunlight, and nutrients, minerals. And then you get a long, prolonged drought, and it puts a lot of stress on those trees. And that's when the bark beetles come in, when the trees are stressed. And the bark beetles will kill a lot of the less healthy, the less strong trees that don't have a real good solid sap flow. And so you get a lot of dead trees. And this becomes kind of an upright wood pile in some places, very, very dangerous for forest fires that burn very, very hot and sterilize the ecosystem. So that's a sign of climate change.
So in the wilderness area, will somebody go in and actually fight wildfires as well?
Yes, yeah, they will. They'll get in there and fight them. They were fighting the 2 that were burning while we were this summer.
Oh, okay.
So yes, they will get in there and fight them. Although you also get, I don't know if they'll do controlled burning in the wilderness, but controlled burning in the national parks is something that I've seen.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And what they're trying to do is reduce some of that fuel so you don't get those really giant hot wildfires like we had Yellowstone a few years back. And we get those in the Pecos too. They're just really, really big hot fires.
Yeah, I just thought since it was a wilderness and, you know. it
Yeah,
doesn't-
they'll do controlled fires in wilderness if
Oh,
if they need to.
Oh, okay.
So there's a blue grouse. I got home and keyed him out.
Very nice.
He was just looking at me, not in any hurry. Now I'm up on what's called the Skyline Trail. So this trail kind of rolls between 12,600 feet, maybe down to
Mhm.
11,000 feet. Just a high ridge trail that's really out in the open. And there's these wonderful trail markers, these cairns and logs held up by rocks. I'm not sure why they built them so big. Maybe they were the scouts and the scoutmaster wanted to keep busy. But maybe it's also for going up and knowing where the trail is in the winter when they're doing
Right.
snow measurements.
Mhm.
And they can see these and go from marker to marker and do their snow measurements. It could be that because the snow measurements they're still doing backcountry snow measurements by sending people on cross-country skis to go and measure depth. But pretty neat looking cairns.
Tom, you mentioned the manual measurement of snow. Is this being superseded in part by some of the satellite technology?
Well, not that I've heard of. I wouldn't be surprised if anybody can weigh in if they know. I'm not sure. I have run into or bumped into by hiking, a person who was a snow person back in Kings Canyon.
They verify. They go in and verify, and it may be from satellite or whatever. But many times they go in and verify.
That's really important measurement to get because you know what the river flows are going to be.
Exactly.
It's really important to do those snow measurements.
Okay.
You can see it's really wide open up here above the
Yeah.
trees. And so it's just, it's like the sound of music. You look all around and you're out there. I didn't start singing, but it's like that. It's just wide open with 360-degree panorama a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You can see I'm going to walk right down that ridge there on the upper right picture, going around a big bowl. Remember, I'm going around the three forks of the Santa Barbara River, the Rio Santa Barbara. And so I'm going to go in this big fan-shaped route along the ridge and come down the East Fork. So I'm going up, kind of rolling with the ridge, getting up on some high points to take some pictures. I got down to the crossroads between the middle fork of the Rio Santa Barbara, and this is also the trail that goes down to the headwaters of the Pecos River. And I wish I'd had a little more time. I could have gone down there and seen the falls and the wild and scenic part of the river. I'll do that on another trip and come up the middle fork, which I didn't get to do. Old wind-blown signs. These signs are old. Climbing up out of that drainage, you can see the dead trees down in there in the middle fork. And this is Chimayoso's Peak here. Now we're on the east side of Chimayoso, so you can see it well, and the Truchas Peak so in the background. Another beautiful cairn. And here's my highest point hiking, was Rincon Bonito, which means pretty corner. And it's a triangular shaped hill. I would call it a mountain, even though it's high enough to be a mountain, but it's really a weathered hill at that elevation. And then coming down off of Rincon Bonito for my fourth and final night, then I started to see the animals. So on the upper left-hand corner, you see the rams here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's one back here behind the tree, and there's two rams here, and there's a ram here. So I found some rams, and you can see they're hanging out by themselves. So I put Minnesota Bachelor Farmers at the Sidetrack Tap for you Prairie Home Companion fans. Because they struck me as that. They had left the ewes and the lambs behind. They'd left their families and they were at the bar on their own. And then down in the valley where I'm going to camp with these pothole lakes was a herd of elk, a pretty big herd.
Oh.
And you can see them here. They're down in the meadow. They hadn't seen me yet. They're down in the meadow here. And then they saw me and they headed for the trees and they went up and over to the Middle Fork. They didn't want anything to do with me. A nice big healthy herd of elk. It was good to see these large animal populations back up in there.
So are the herds managed for size because of the grazing permit issue?
I'm not sure if they do any management of those at all or allow any hunting. I'm not sure in the wilderness. Paul, do you know about the Pecos?
Oh, well, yeah, if they get way out of, too many, they'll send them out. But normally, just especially in wilderness, they just let them there.
Yeah.
They'll kind of thin themselves out.
And they will be going on to Forest Service land that's not protected as wilderness.
Right.
Remember, they're only about 10 miles from the boundary in any direction,
Yeah.
maybe 20.
Yeah.
And they'll end up in areas that are hunted on just regular Forest Service, Carson, Santa Fe. You can see the weather's coming in. So this is my big weather night.
But they also have predator animals
Yes.
living in the area, right?
Yeah, they've got,
Oh, okay.
I haven't seen them, but they're mountain lion, they're black
Right.
bear, of course, fox and coyotes and smaller predators like ferrets and
No, I mean,
raptors.
the ones that would eat the elk,
Yeah,
so-
that'd be
that keeps it down, right?
mountain lions would be probably your
Yeah.
most likely customer. They're going after a little one or a diseased one.
Well, okay.
You can see my gear there. That's kind of what the camp looks like. I had a beautiful camp there, but then the weather moved in. So I had a really cold, stormy night with hail and rain, and I thought the tent was going to blow away. I had my lighter sleeping bag. With climate change, that's a human adaptation that I've made, is I hardly ever haul my heavier sleeping bag anymore. I do my lighter one, and I throw in some long underwear, and I can always put on my hiking pants and get some layers if I need it. And that's what I had to do this night. I had to put on 3 layers on the top and 3 layers on the bottom, and wear socks and wear my stocking cap, which was good because I'd hauled those things and I needed them. It was cold. It was so windy. That was a wild storm.
Tom, do you carry any defense against bears and mountain lions?
I do have some bear spray, but I don't carry it anymore. I just keep a really clean camp. I put all my food and toiletries into my bear canister, and I put the bear canister a couple 100 feet away from the tent. So if they're attracted to anything, they'll be attracted to that. And all they can do is roll it around the meadow. They can't get into it. I'll see my bear canister in this picture.
Oh,
But that seems to, I think that's good enough. I have a whistle. I can blow my whistle if there's a bear. Andrew's had a bear experience on a trip that we went on. And we tried hanging food in the trees, didn't we, Andrew?
Yeah, but that wasn't in New Mexico. So I don't think I've never seen a bear in New Mexico. So it's not really something I've ever been too worried about. They're out there, but
I was there for that too.
yes.
Oh, Sarah, you're on. Good. Yeah, Sarah was there.
too.
Joan was there.
That was scary.
That was a mother and a cub, and they were in our camp patrolling and getting the food out of the trees. We tried to do the counterbalance, and those bears, they knew the system. We had the mother bear actually gnawing through the branch that she thought the food was hanging from.
Oh,
But it was the branch that was even with where the food was hanging. So she misjudged it and was chewing on the wrong branch. She needed to be about 10 feet further up. And
They still got it.
Yeah, they got,
Some of
Where,
our
where
food.
was
they got a
this
lot of
at?
our food.
That was in
Tom?
California.
So that's
Oh.
that's why bear canisters came in. In national parks, you can't counterbalance anymore. They want you to lock it in a bear canister, and the bears don't get rewarded. Somebody was asking a question. Was somebody-
Tom, it's almost 10 to 3. Just
Oh
so
gosh, I'm going slow. I gotta get to
Yeah.
Andrews. So here we go. We go morning after the storm. We'll come down. We got a Columbine. And now we're in the East Fork of the Santa Barbara. That's pretty too.
That's a beautiful valley.
Yeah, it's pretty. And I did run into some cattle. They had the bull out with the cows here. It's that time of year. I did run into I think I ran into the ranchers on their horses. A couple of really nice Hispanic guys who blessed me. Said, God bless you, when I got off the trail. And so there's some cattle. And here's the last picture on this one. Whatever wind blows, while they and I have leaves, we cannot other than an aspen be that ceaselessly unreasonably grieves, or so men think who like a different tree. I love aspens, so I love their sound. That's not a grieving sound to me. Okay, and here's Goose. Second trip, couple of nights out, Andrew's puppy. And he's putting on the pack for the first time, right, Andrew?
Yeah, I think we were just testing it out the night before we left here. So I just put his little doggy sleeping bag in one side and a pad for him to sleep on in the other. So it wasn't a lot of weight, but it helped to free up some space in my pack.
It was good too. It slowed him down so he didn't run ahead of us too far.
Yeah, he kept clipping those saddlebags on trees and brush and everything. It took him a while to get used to being a little bit wider.
Is he-
He's carrying. He was carrying stuff for the humans.
That cute.
Adam, is he an Australian cattle dog?
He is, yes. He's a mix, but that's definitely what he's mostly a cattle dog.
Yeah.
And not sure what else is in him, but
Maybe Basenji, didn't they think Basenji?
a lot of people have said Basenji. A lot of people that I run into that are curious.
Except he barks.
So that's what I'm going with. Basenji cattle dog.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Getting off from the car at the trailhead. There's the Rio Medio Valley. Got healthy trees in here. Up on the top of the other ridge, though, there was, you can almost tell there'd been a forest fire up there. Some dead trees up above. And Goose is really smart. He's reading a map here. We ran into a guy back there who was doing all of his orienteering with through technology, right? Through a cell phone, Andrew?
Yeah, through the All Trails app, which is an app that I use. It has hiking trails on it, and people can write reviews and talk about the trails and stuff, but he was relying solely on that, and it wasn't really enough.
Oh,
Yeah, he was a little lost.
You get connection up there?
Well, that's the problem, is there is no connection. So he had downloaded
Oh, okay.
the trail that he was on. He had downloaded just that, but he couldn't see any other trails.
Yeah, he
So
didn't
he
know
couldn't
any-
improvise. He was stuck on his one route, which didn't allot enough time for. He was day hiking 25 miles or so.
Yeah,
Day hiking. Pretty crazy.
I actually had a treat in my hand there to set that picture up. It's nice that the trails up there are numbered. If you're going to leave a route with anybody, you can not only name the trail, but name the number. And if the Forest Service people would probably prefer the number there. He's on Trail 158.
Yeah, if they don't come back home on the designated day.
You can see this pack of gooses has another utility on it, a handle.
Oh, look at that.
Came in handy for getting them over all the blowdown. A lot of trees were down across the trail. We had to lift them up and over a few of those.
Yeah, this was handy, wasn't it? And for the pictures, the strobe light was flashing, so he was great on pictures. He was very interested in the strobe light, so he's posing.
Set the camera up somewhere.
Our first night camp, and Goose was racing around and dragging sticks around, knocking things over. So we set up the timeout picture here. We had a nice camp there, but it was cold. We were down in a kind of a moist canyon there, but real pretty. We really wished we could have had a campfire. There's a lot of down wood and a lot of things to burn, but totally restricted for the summer with how dry it had been. Here's some of that downfall that Andrew was mentioning. Mm-hmm. These dead trees blow over and they cover the trail, and we had to go through this. This trail hadn't gotten any attention for years until we were coming out. Ironically, we're coming out and here comes a trail crew. And how many years had it been since they'd had a trail crew? What did
it was like 12 or 15 years since they sent someone out. And of course, on our way out, they were coming.
Yeah, we're almost done. Over all these and around and under these snaggy trees. And here comes the trail crew, the Youth Civilian Conservation Corps, I think, and maybe an indicator that the Great American Outdoor Act is starting to pay off. And
a lot of volunteers get involved in that too.
Yeah.
Now they allow chainsaws then?
Yeah, the crew had them.
You're muted.
Boy, they had some big logs. They needed them. Yeah. We get up above the Rio Medio headwaters for our second camp. And we hiked up to Jose Vigil Lake. I don't know who Jose Vigil was, but he has a lake. And it's up above there is the Truchas Peak from the west side. So Andrew and I took Goose after we made our camp and we day hiked up there. And it's real pretty. Nice reflection. There's a little false front there. I think if you got up on top there, there'd be a little more climbing to get to the top of Truchas Peak. This was the way we were planning to climb it, but we decided it was a little too rocky for Goose and we didn't do it. There they are, the family. Jose Vigil Lake, real pretty. And our second camp. And then we had a beautiful sunset on Pecos Wilderness. We saw that earlier. Isn't that pretty how golden it got? Mm-hmm. That was a real cold night too. It got very cold, didn't it, Andrew?
Yes, I was, and I had Goose to warm me up a little bit, but I was freezing.
We know it was way below freezing that night because it even froze the white gas in my stove. We couldn't make coffee in the morning.
Oh yeah, that's right. We get our coffee.
It froze that white gas, and I would think that has a lower freezing point than water.
Yeah.
So no coffee well, we had cold coffee, didn't we, Andy?
That's pretty gross, but
stirred Starbucks.
Got us down the trail.
Got packed up and we're going to go all the way out in one day. And I just show this log. This is a creek crossing where an old man like me has to put on water shoes and be really careful while a young guy like Andrew just bounds like a gazelle. and the dog goes plowing. Well, the dog can do anything the dog wants. The dog can go on the log. The dog can go through the water.
He loves water, so he always chose to go straight across through the water.
But this kind of thing is really dangerous with that loose bark. And if there's any moisture on the log, you can end a trip very quickly if you're not careful. At least we have the hiking poles, and that helps us keep our balance.
Yeah, I needed those for sure. I wasn't quite as agile as my dad is putting it. I needed those poles to stabilize. It was still kind of sketchy.
And here's a place where we had to pick goose up. We could get through pretty easy on the logs, but this was going to be really hard for him. And we pumped water there. It's really one of my favorite pictures. Water purifying, filtering it so we don't get giardia, and staying hydrated. And Goose doesn't care if he gets giardia. He just.
And Andrew's gonna care later, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that giardia, when it gets into you, it's hard. You have to get medication to get rid of it, or it will keep coming back in cycles. We saw some fish here. We did have our fishing rods again, and we didn't get to fish, but we finally saw some trout, some nice trout in this stream. And here's our last picture. We're back, and Goose is pooped. His tongue's hanging out. And we're back to the car up at the Gamble Oaks, looking out toward, I think we're looking toward Espanola there.
Yep.
Tom and Andrew, is the trail easy to follow the whole way, or are there places where you have to stop and scratch your head and say, are we still on the trail?
We had a few of those moments, actually. One in particular that took us quite a bit of time to figure out. But I think we determined that the map was incorrect, or
yes, the map is Pecos Wilderness. This Santa Fe, this Forest Service, United States Department of Agriculture map is wrong, Paul.
I must have done it.
Well, it just showed that the trail did or didn't go across the stream when the opposite was true.
yeah.
And so we had to do some backtracking, didn't we, Andrew?
Yeah, and we chose a trail that wasn't traveled very often. It didn't seem like, we only saw that one other guy out there. And with all the down trees, I don't think a lot of people were hiking that trail. So it was hard to find it, especially having to go off trail to get around trees and other things.
Well, that's a true wilderness.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. That was much more rugged than anything I hiked on the 5 days by myself. Really, really rugged.
What does Goose feel about going out again?
Oh, he can't wait.
Tom and Andrew, did you identify any birds?
We saw, and I'm not sure if this is because of the bird kill that's been happening in New Mexico, but we saw a couple of dead birds that were just lying on the ground. They looked beautiful and kind of healthy, but they were dead. And something has been killing birds in New Mexico, and they've been trying to figure out what it is. So we saw that grouse. What's that?
Lots of grouse. That's
yeah,
all.
Starvation.
Yeah, it could be starvation too. I don't know. We saw a lot more grouse on this part of the trip. We didn't see as many cattle up here. This would not be a good grazing lease. There's not much open grass in this particular drainage, and it's real brushy.
I've seen bald eagles up in this part of New Mexico, up closer to Taos before. I didn't see any on this trip, but that's always a treat.
This is looking downstream for where we pumped. So this is where we saw some trout, right down in that pool, just before the logs down below. Any other questions or comments? We took a lot while we went here. Fun. Anyways, a good trip. I wanted to finish with a nice John Muir quote. And
Tom,
it was fun to take you on a walk with us. Yes.
how much did your backpack weigh?
Andrew, we weighed our backpacks? What were they? About, what was it?
What were they? 32, 33, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Each.
When I went by myself, I was in the mid 40s, but when you go with Andrew, and we're only going for 2 nights and 3 days, but you can also divide it. There's certain resources like the stove, you only need one of them. And you divide it up between the packs and it lightens things up quite a bit.
We could have been lighter, but you know, you got to bring some whiskey and some items like that.
This is why we have such a good relationship, father-son. It is nice to have a snort of whiskey at the end of a hard day when you're sitting on your camp chair and looking out at the mountains.
Forget the coffee.
Well, it looks like a beautiful area, that's for sure.
It is. It's really a gem in New Mexico. I've been through the Gila Wilderness and the Aldo Leopold Wilderness areas closer to us and hiked in those, and those are beautiful and really different from this. But we're really lucky in New Mexico to have so much public land and to have these three wonderful wilderness areas. Very, very fortunate.
Well, I guess the U-Dolls have maybe an effect there.
Yeah, you know, of course, the Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, is from New Mexico, and the Udall family, New Mexico, Arizona, and they have been, I know our Senator Udall's dad was a Secretary of the Interior.
Yeah, he was, I was in the government at that time. He was a real promoter of wilderness and public lands.
Yeah, the Udall family are really into conservation.
Yep.
Does anyone know the designation of Via Caldera?
The Via Caldera is in the Santa Fe National Forest, but I'm not sure what the designation is, the additional protections. I'm not sure. That's a beautiful place.
Well, it could be a monument. I don't know.
Could be. If you want to see that over and over, binge watch Longmire, the wonderful. He's a Wyoming sheriff, but they're stealing northern New Mexico for that show. They should have just called it Northern New Mexico. They ripped us off.
Okay, so it's a little bit after 3.
Yes.
So I think we should conclude if that's okay. Yeah. So thank you everybody for coming. Paul, do you want to give the quick runabout for what'll be next week's topic?
Yeah, right. A friend of mine, let that big clap to Tom.
Oh, yes, of course.
And Andrew.
Very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. We thought you'd like to see some nature.
Anyway, the next week we'll have Roger Beck and a colleague of his. They're going to talk about the rural-urban divide and what can be done to get it closer together. So it should be a good discussion. Roger he went to Afghanistan with me a few years ago, and so I know him quite well. But he's going to talk. The two of them are going to talk about the rural-urban divide and how we can get closer together. So it should be a good program.
Sounds good.
Recognize Tom. He's going to be retiring here very soon.
Yeah, I've got one more week of work, and I'll finish with this. I've got my Arizona Game and Fish mug that says, "Hunt and fish more, work less." Anyway, it'll be fun to join my retired friends starting next Monday. And thanks for being here with Andrew and me for our trip.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone.
Thank you
Have a
very
great
much.
afternoon.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a great day. Enjoy the football.
You bet.